All right, I'm here with Billy West, voice actor, radio personality, also an author, because we just talked about that a couple minutes ago. So, how are you doing?
Not as good as some, better than others. Yeah.
So, your career started in 1980 and you started out on the radio. How did that all form? Like, was that something you wanted to do growing up, or is it just something you fell into?
Um, let's see. It's kind of both. When I was a child, I mean a very, very small child, I knew um what microphones were because I watched television, and I was fascinated by them. I mean, I was very, very small. I was like about a year, no, about almost 2 years old. And when I was toddling around, I would get a potato masher out of the kitchen and put it up in a windowsill, and it would have this wooden handle. And to me, it looked like a microphone. And I would sit in the window and I would just talk. And I mean, that was the first memory I have of being drawn to wanting to do those things. But you know that that stayed with me forever. And when I get out of high school, I started playing music for a living, and was in bands and sang and played, and I worked with microphones for God more than 50 years. So now I love I love how they've become so fetishized. Everybody got a microphone. Every thing I look at, there's somebody that has a strategic microphone placed. Like, hi. It's like the international symbol for I'm broadcasting. It's like it's just it's a fetish. It's like you don't need it. I mean, you can hear me fine. I don't have a microphone. This is a dummy.
Yeah.
And I can hear you. It's an affectation and it's cosplay, really. I mean, but everybody's got to have that. I'm on the air. Hi, hey guys, hey guys, like and subscribe. Hey guys, watch me watch something that someone else did. If you like my content, like and subscribe.
What did you play? What instrument did you play?
Guitar. I was a guitar player. But
See, like,
oh, go
well,
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, a lot of people that I work with in the radio industry, they're all musically talented. It's weird to me.
And they're also probably people that have done comedy professionally, or maybe they're just comedically inclined, because musicians have that in common with comedians. Every musician I know wanted to be a comedian, and every comedian wanted to be a musician.
And yeah, no, you're not wrong about that. And then gradually when you were on radio, you got into K Rock with Howard Stern back in the 80, what was it, 85, 86, that era?
No, no. What happened was I was living in Boston, and I was out of a band. I had just, I was just playing and going out and making a living. Actually, I made a living for a long time. And I, a friend of mine called me one morning and said, "Hey, they're having this contest on the radio." And he said they want to find somebody that sounds like Mel Blanc. And he said, "Call him up. You should call him up." And I didn't even listen to the station. I mean, I was aware of them, but I didn't listen. But I called them up. It was early in the morning. I was hungover as usual. And they answered the phone and they said, "Hi, BCN, you sound like Mel Blanc." And I didn't know what to say because I kind of got caught. I didn't realize somebody was going to just pick up the phone. And I went,
Right.
and they hung up on me. And I
Mm.
said, "I'm going to fix this fucking guy." So I call back and I hear, "Hi, WBCN, you sound like Mel Blanc." And I launched into like 2.5 minutes of nonstop machine gunning out voices, like Mel Blanc voices, Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers. And he went, "Hold on." And next thing you know, he put me on the air. and I was playing a contest with the disc jockey that was on. His name was Charles Laquadera, and this is in 1980, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I win the contest, and I win a dinner, and I went to the radio station and picked up a prize, and they got a hold of me and asked me to come up there. So I came up there. They were in the Prudential building at the very top, it was the radio station up there. And this is where I met Charles, whose show it was. And he was the big guy in town, on FM radio, 104.1 WBCN. It was the flagship station of an Infinity Broadcasting Company. And it was a leader in the FM field because they had so many listeners, but they also were free form. There was no niggling from myopic program directors. There was no, you know, we're going to tell you what to play and that's that, and you're going to eat it and you're going to like it. None of that shit went on then. Very little of it, if any. And and the guy that answered the phone, who picked up the phone on me, turns out to be this guy Eddie Gordetsky, and I've known him for 40 something years, and eventually I got a job working at that radio station. There was a morning show production job that opened up to produce a morning show, and the guy Charles wanted me to bid for it, just get in there and try something. And I said to myself, there's no producer school. I don't even know what it is, but all right. The next thing you know, I was recording bits and writing them and splicing tape and all the stuff that morning shows devour. They just they're uh, they eat up material. Comedic material, audio. But that's the nature of a morning show, and you couldn't keep repeating bits because once you did something and it was over, just millions of people have heard it. And so you're always moving forward and coming up with something else. And it was like a comedic vampire, you just like it sucked the life out of you, but you have to live for those kind of things. You have to have it in you.
Right.
And I did. I was an output machine. And I barely knew what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to make people laugh, and I would just write and record stuff that I thought was funny. And this was my earliest performing in character, doing voices. And and I realized that I could do a lot of voices. I never thought of myself as an actor, but it turns out that is what it is. It's acting when you're performing, and but that's where I got my start. And then let's see, it was like about, let's see, 1980, no, 1990, that I left the station and went to New York. And that's where Howard Stern was broadcasting from. That was our sister station. It was WXRK. And I sort of knew who he was. I mean, there was talk of him in the industry, but nobody else really did unless you were in New York or Philadelphia or actually Washington, D.C. Because he was one of the first ones to syndicate. I mean, like in the 50s, it was all about syndication. National networks were NBC, CBS and ABC had a national broadcasting. But those days kind of went away, and they'd become affiliates, but they'd be independent stations that would be operating under uh, ownerships, of like it was always local market. Radio was local.
Right.
Suddenly, it wasn't national, and every city had like a few stations that were. Uh, if it was Chicago, they'd be Chicago centric, and vice versa. Like excuse me, like Boston, it would be Boston centric. And Stern wanted to be syndicated as many stations as he could be. So he was the kind of um, the firebrand actually that kind of pushed that forward. And but when I got there, I didn't know what end was up. New York was just a huge, huge place, and I was intimidated. But I said, you know what? I took a good look around, and I said, I'm gonna, I want to knock this place on its ass. That's basically what I said because New York was so daunting, and I said, I'm not gonna come crawling into the city like a rat out of the subway. I want to come in like a Terminator, you know, and that was how I went to work. I was like, yeah.
Now, when you got on the show, was he not well, like I know with like different personalities, beating on the air, they're either like really nice and then off the air they're really dicks. I mean, was he always the same, like versus on and off?
No, he was a dick on the air, but off the air, he was very nice to me.
It's very nice.
Yes. What's Billy talking about, Robin? You know, he never knew what I was talking about, but he kind of deferred to me a lot. You know, when he would say, "Go ahead," you know, like he would give me the cue to go off on something, and I would, and I was being aided and abetted by Jackie Martling, who was the gag writer of the show, and he would always pass one-liners to to Howard and Fred Norris, the sound guy, would also write stuff. Not as much as Jackie, but like when I was going and riffing and everything, Jackie would lob in a few things here and there, and I would just have stuff to run with, to improvise, and you know, there was this notion that somehow every single thing had to be written for me, and that I wasn't funny. You know, I mean, when I left, how come nobody else was that funny? If they had the
Yeah.
same guys passing them notes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk with him anymore, or has it just
No,
been no?
no, no. I quit the station. I just I wanted some more money and nobody would talk to me, you know, and I said, fuck this, you know. I wasn't gonna stay in the part of the pool where people pee, you know. If I did, then shame on me. I'm not a victim. So
Yeah.
I just said, listen, I'm gonna leave, and everybody was shocked, and the whole audience was like, you know, pissed off at me. It's like, yeah, he'll find out. He'll come crawling back. You know, nobody leaves the Stern Show, and you know, to me, it wasn't the last stop on the bus. It just takes courage to believe in yourself. But I couldn't stay there. I mean, I went as far as I could go, and I had nothing to go to. Pretty
Yeah.
smart, huh? Pretty smart. And then I decided that I was going to move to California and started auditioning stuff for stuff. I had already been doing commercials out of New York, on top of working at the radio station. But I just, you know, I had auditioned for Nickelodeon at the time, that I was getting ready to leave the Stern Show, and they were going to have a Sunday morning cartoon block, animation block, and it was a woman named Jerry Laybourne and Vanessa Coffey and Mary Harrington. And what they were planning to do was they wanted to do everything networks were not doing. Like networks had all their kids programming on Saturday morning. Traditionally, it always was that. And they said, no, we're going to do ours on Sunday morning. And it was a genius move because there was nothing on Sunday morning, and there was a ton of kids. There was the whole audience sitting there, and so they had a show. And I auditioned for a guy named Jim Jenkins, and his show was Doug, and it was about a painfully shy 11 and a half year old. And yeah, I was a painfully shy 11 and a half year old, and this is my dog Pork Chop. Dear Journal, hi, it's me, Doug. No, it ain't, you lying loser. You rotten loser, funny. You got a loser written all over your forehead. It's even spelled wrong. And then I had done a cartoon in 1988. It was a quick hit and run, actually. It was like 4 or 5 episodes. called Beanie and Cecil. It was a reboot of a show that was around in the '60s that I saw when I was very young, and they wanted to redo it for ABC. And the animator on the show was John Crispolucci. Um, that's how I met him. And then a few years later, he had put a show together, and he wanted to sell it to Nickelodeons. He called me up and wanted me to um, audition and test for the voices. And I remember we went over to Nickelodeon offices right in Times Square. It was MTV Networks, and he realized that he didn't have a demo tape. He was going into a meeting with all these women, and he had no demo tape. So we went in a closet. It's right out of the movies, you know. We went into a closet up the
Yeah.
hall from where we were going to meet. Actually, it was the news guys near his office, Kurt Loder, and I'm in the closet with scripts and there's a tape recorder, and they had it fastened to a broom handle. You know, it's just really um, it was cinematic. I mean, it was like a scene out of an old movie. And he recorded it, and then he said, "Okay, I'm going in there." And he went in and met with them. And when he came out, I waited around. He said, "Congratulations, what you did just sold the show to them." And I said, "Well, great." And and then it turns out that he wanted to do the other voice, the Ren voice. But I remember I had auditioned for it, and they were giving me tapes of things to play, to listen to, characteristics and trademarks of this character that they wanted, like hooks and sayings and catchphrases. And so I didn't care, I didn't care because, are you kidding me? I was going to do a voice in a cartoon and get paid for it. I mean, I was over the moon. And it became a huge hit. I mean, all the Nicktoons were big hits. Doug, not so much at first, and then it grew an audience. But Ren and Stimpy was like, people all over the world were watching it, and
Right.
I had no idea what was going
Really?
on. You never know how, there was no internet.
Yeah, that's
You,
true.
you never know how you're being perceived or who's watching what and who likes what. There was no way to know. They just depended solely on ratings to give them an indication of what was going on out there in the wide world. And they they were running into problems because John was troublesome. He was problematic about living up to contractual obligations, namely delivering episodes on time. He was just uh, I don't know, habitually tardy with his work. I don't know. It was like being a perfectionist or claiming he didn't have enough money to do what he wanted, and there was this crisis atmosphere. This turbulence, and I was away from it. I would fly out to California, and I would record those episodes, and I'd come home, and I'd go back on the Stern Show, back to work, and and then I began to think, I don't know what's going on. They're showing the same 5 episodes, 4 or 5 episodes, over and over and over for months because they ran out of shows because he couldn't put them out on time. But that even made the show more popular because repetition just, people would just out of habit suddenly say, "I got to see this. I got to show my friend this. I got to," you know, and people were barely taping shows then. VHSs were new. Um, but and it was very high energy, high velocity, a lot of screaming and yelling. It was very primal, and a lot of times I thought I was going to not be able to do it because I would blow my voice out from screaming and yelling.
Mm.
And "Hey Ren, will you button me? Will you shut up, you fool? Yes, I shall kill you, you idiot!" And uh, he got fired from the show because he was just like insubordinate. And um, they came to me and they said, "Hey, wait a minute, weren't you supposed to do, both voices?" I said, "Yeah, I guess. I mean, he wanted me to quit the show when he got fired, and I wouldn't do it, and so that started a whole thing. But I mean, I would have been stupid for doing that because they would have either pulled the plug on the show or got somebody else. They weren't going to let anybody hold them up.
Yeah.
Nobody was that important. He seemed to think I was like, they can do the show without me, but they'll never do it without you. You know, m- Manipulating me. A narcissist move. Like, do you realize how important you are? So if you quit, they'll have to get me back. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just like, I wasn't stupid. And I just said, no, I can't. I just got going. And now suddenly I have to, because of somebody else, I have to upend my world. And I just said, fuck that. I'm not going to do that. So I started doing the both voices and finished 4 seasons of the show. And it remained popular and they sold tons and tons of merchandise. Really. I mean, just tons of it. And, the marketing for things was just kicking into high gear. I mean, Hasbro and toy companies already had that down, and they were forcing networks to build shows around the toys they had. It was this kind of insidious master plan. Um, that's where you got all these Rainbow Brights and Strawberry Shortcakes and Pound Puppies, and because the toys were already there,
Right.
and they just had the networks hire people and build a cartoon so they could have the um, you know built-in sales, built-in audience, and guaranteed sales if it was popular.
Now, Doug, and you did 4 seasons of Doug as well, and it went to Disney right after.
Yes.
Did they call you back to do another couple seasons at like once it made the switch from Nick to Disney, or did it just blow over? How did that work?
um, they wanted me to do it, but they wanted me to do more work for less money.
Okay.
And so I said, I wish you nothing but the best. And and uh, I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do business. And they went and they had to hire like 3 people at least to just do what I had done alone. But that's okay. That's the way they think. They spent more money for toilet paper for all the television stations than they wanted to pay me. So it was like, it's nothing to them. They don't mind hiring 5 people if they have to. And it's a whole 4 more sets of residuals. I mean, it's such ridiculous thinking. Doesn't make business sense. I mean, but that's the way corporate people are.
Oh yeah.
He's not gonna win. It's a pissing contest. Even if it's over $65, he's not gonna win.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I know that.
Yeah,
I can go into a whole tangent about what the place I work. Um,
right. Well, it's always gonna be like that, and it's always has been like that. But
yeah, it's insane with
but
corporate businesses.
yeah, I know. Um, but somehow you have to find a way to coexist as an artist. You have to find a way to coexist in that world, and you have to fight for everything that you get. They don't give away anything, and they kind of want to keep you in the dark about how much success they're having, of course, because this is the business model. Um, but everything that I went to go do, lucky for me, would become hugely successful. And and I began to think, well, maybe it has something to do with me, you know. And so I had agents, and I always would try to negotiate, fair and square, like to get as much as the traffic would bear. And no one can fault you for that. That's what everybody wants to do. and hopes that they can do it. Um, so that was my foray into cartoons and radio.
What? So when you did Space Jam, because it's
Mhm.
been approximately 30 years since the movie came out,
Yeah.
did you get to meet Michael Jackson, Bill Murray? Did you get to meet those guys, or was it just like, oh, I'm in the studio, I'm recording Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd, or how did that all come about?
On Space Jam, um, it was Ivan Reitman that hired me.
Okay.
And he got a load of me from the Stern Show because as I was leaving the Stern Show, Ivan Reitman was producing Howard's first movie, Private Parts. And so he would come in and he would watch us working and he would think, I don't know where all this, this powerhouse worth of material comes from. He couldn't see much going on. He's sitting there and we're just sitting there. And then the things would happen the way they happen. It was like lightning going through the studio. We'd get off on something and then it would have this inertia and just be incredibly innovative and energetic and relentless and ruthless a lot of the times, but it was for comedic purposes and we were breaking a lot of barriers, stuff that had never been done on the radio before. And it felt good. It felt good to be like the bad boys, like all the other stations, nobody could compete because they were living by the rules. And you
Yeah.
got a rule breaker, Howard, who happens to become monstrously successful, and suddenly the imbeciles in corporate couldn't argue with that. They were like, we hate it, but we love the money, we love the sponsors. And
Yeah.
well, anyway, Ivan wanted me to audition for Bugs, and I did. I went to California again from New York. I was still living there, and auditioned for Bugs a couple of times, and he hired me for the movie. And I did get to work with Michael Jordan, Doc. The closest thing to a religious figure that we have.
What was that like? That had to be kind of interesting working with them.
Well, I didn't work with him directly. We all the voice
Okay.
people recorded in a recording studio, and they recorded the live action separately with models that were playing the characters that we were voicing, and then they superimposed the animation over the live action, and then they applied the soundtracks that we recorded. And but at the wrap up party, I met Michael Jordan. He was very very nice, and he was aware of me. I mean, and his sports agent introduced him to me, and he said, "Michael, this is Billy West. He played Bugs," and he went Billy, and he reaches over like six people, his arm, and shakes my hand, and his hand is as big as a baseball glove. And I said, "Wow, I just met the greatest,"
Yeah, no,
a legend.
that had to be interesting though, like just to meet like it's pretty cool though, like when you meet someone who is a legend in their own way, like
Yeah.
basketball, radio, television, whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're literally, these are people that were touched by the divine to become the superlatives that they were. And if you're any kind of an artist or a creator, um, you hope for that same thing to happen to you. You look for inspiration. You want to be moved emotionally and spiritually to always want to become better, a better version of yourself. And what drives you is you're not totally doing it for yourself. You want to make people happy.
Right.
That's the driving engine, really.
I got to meet
At least for me, it is. That's I didn't think there was any money to be made in what I did. I mean, I knew that the greatest people in the business probably made money, but I could never imagine myself making a lot of money. And I plus I had no interest in becoming famous, which is an anomaly. That just everybody wants to be famous. All the little hey guys on YouTube, everybody wants to be famous, and but that's not the goal. I mean, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be famous. I mean, I that stuff to me was garbage. Like celebrity meant jack shit to me. It never meant anything to me.
Right.
Winning awards never meant anything to me. Um, I didn't care about that stuff. All I cared about was the work. And I know it sounds like, oh, this sounds so contrived, but I couldn't help it. I was born very pure in that regard.
That's how I am. I mean, I when I where I work right now, I care more about the work than the actual friendship and meeting this person, that person, and this person. I've always been a workaholic, and it shows.
Right.
I've worked two
Yeah.
jobs through college, and even my wife could attest to this. I've worked on major holidays and haven't really spent time with her because I've been so focused on working.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I did prioritize work because that's all I ever really wanted to do. Um, and when I got it in abundance, I didn't walk away from it. I didn't reserve my energy. I poured it on. I've been pouring it on for 45 years. And I never stopped. I'm still working every single day, really.
You're on Futurama as well because I saw recently you're still doing voices for
Yeah.
Futurama. Yeah,
Yeah,
is that the?
we're doing
I was
another
going to say, is
season.
that the only one? Sorry.
No, I'm working for Disney now. I'm doing a show called Big City Greens, and I think those are really the only two cartoons I'm doing now. I um I cut back a lot just so I could, catch my breath after so many years of getting up early and working. And so I'm still doing those shows, Futurama, and we there's another season on the way, and then we signed to do more. So I know what I'll be doing for the next few years, and which is terrific. I'm glad. I'm very grateful for that, and I'm glad that people love it. And we just uh, we're grateful to the audience, and you get rewarded for paying attention to that show.
Yeah, and you have a book coming out too in July.
Yeah, yeah. In July 14th, it's called Voice Versa. And I wrote it during the pandemic, and I just said, I'm old enough now where I don't know how long I'm going to be around. And I said, I'd like to chronicle what I've done. And then once I got into it, I just kept going and going and going. I never fancied myself as a writer. I could write short form programming, comedic programming for radio. That was my training and advertising. But, I write the way I talk, and that's all I could bring to the table. I told the publishers that. I said, I don't know what syntax is, and I don't know what this, that, or the other thing is. I do have a love of language, and I have a lot of ideas, and I know how to put them forward. But I do write the way I speak, and they were fine with that. And next thing you know, I had written 300 pages, but it's nobody. I was convinced that nobody wants to read about how good you're doing, how great your life is going. They want to know where the hell you came from, and so I had to be honest about my childhood, which was horrific. It was torturous. My father was a drunk, violent psycho, and I
Mm.
was the whipping boy. And I went to school black and blue, and it was nonstop. It was every day something. So I grew up like guessing at what normal was, and I always thought everything was my fault. What else can a kid believe if he's being punished and yelled at? I'm sorry that I'm upsetting them, so I don't know what I did, but you think it's your fault.
Yeah, that
Yeah, because kids they think everything is about them.
yeah, that is like I know people personally who have been through what you've been through, and
Yeah.
I was watching a video I was watching a video game where it was about like this girl playing hide and seek with her sister, and it turns out the mom killed her dad and whatnot. And this guy who was commentating doing during the video game, he was like, it's weird how parents don't cherish kids and realize what a blessing they are because
Right.
kids are really great. And a lot of people come from broken families, and it's just heartbreaking. You know what I mean?
It is heartbreaking, and it's worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
The abuse. Yeah, I mean, I dedicated my book to the abused, sexually and otherwise. Which I was both. I was uh, sexually molested twice by both sexes before I was 10 years old.
Jesus.
So, and I took my first beating in utero when my mom told my dad she was pregnant. He hauled off and kicked her in the stomach. He was drunk. He was trying to kill me, really. Um, but somehow, but a lot of damage, a lifetime of damage was done in less than 5 minutes, and so I spent most of my life trying to cut through scar tissue and digging out of being crushed by polytraumas. You know what I mean? And then trying to make sense of the world growing up and having being bedeviled by my father, who never made anything easy for me. And plus, there was no word for neurodivergence back in the 1950s. No one knew what that was. No one knew what autism was. Nobody knew what OCD, ADHD. Nobody. There was no word for it.
Yeah.
And here I was born with chronic low level depression, and I was neurodivergent. I couldn't get my mind around anything. I was upside down, underwater, as far as rational thinking goes, and critical thinking. My mind was a jumble. I couldn't tie a necktie. You could show me 2,000 times, and I still couldn't do it. I couldn't tie. I struggle with seat belts. I still, to this very day, struggle with seat belts. I can't tie my shoes. I would make a mock-up of something that looked normal, but I never could tie them. And it was embarrassing because there'd always be some kid, hey man, you tie cuckoo. And I mean, I had to hide a lot of myself because I didn't want anybody looking at me too closely because they bullet hole you. Kids are cruel. They're wonderful when they're younger, and then all of a sudden they turn into these psychopaths, sociopaths, and a lot of it is because they had screwed up parenting.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
the
I
bully,
know.
the bully kid has a bully father.
I got bullied a lot in middle school. So I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome growing up.
Oh wow!
So I had to go to special classes. I would go to a
Yes,
regular class and then go to a special class with like 10 people in it, I guess. And a
yes,
lot of people would berate me, say, you're retarded, you're
yeah. Oh
stupid,
sure.
you're never going to amount to anything. And I got bullied a lot by a group of kids.
Yes,
So once I hit high school, I just did regular classes. I was still, still struggle to learn from time to time. But
yeah, yeah.
one of my bullies joined the wrestling team in 10th grade, and he was just like, "Hey, man, what I did to you in high school or middle school, I was completely not there. My dad was in jail. He still is in jail, and I was
Oh
just a
yeah.
really upset kid. And we became
Yep.
the best. We became really good friends in high school, and
Wow.
that was a turning point. I said, "Hey, thank you for apologizing. This is I didn't know. You know what I mean?"
Sure, and it makes nothing but sense that that's his lineage. You
Yeah,
know. But the thing was, is I never became a bully. I I broke that particular pattern. Um, the person that traumatized him, see, I hated him. I wanted to, when my mom one day in 1963 had planned that the house was too dangerous a place, and I had two brothers, and one was an infant, and my mom was getting violently handled, and she couldn't stand that their sons had to be uh, beat up every day or every other day. So nothing was good. Everything sucked, and she just said, "We got to get out of here." It was a very courageous thing for a woman to do in those days. She was only 30, and to take three boys and get on a plane and leave. But we were the Catholic Church frowned upon any of that shit. That was just not to be. You couldn't even allow to be separated. The church would excommunicate you.
Yeah.
Because they controlled everybody's lives back then. Um, Not so much now. At least not the Catholic Church. I mean, they had so much shit in their closet that was shameful and disgusting that they were in no position to regulate the morality of others. So they began losing their flock, and rightly so. But I had religion shoved down my throat as a kid, and I used to know more about religion than most people that I knew. And then when I see people being religious now, it's like, in my heart of hearts, when I was 10 years old, I knew everybody was full of shit. I just knew in my heart. And I was right. I grew up to be an adult and I was full of shit as an adult.
Yeah.
But I knew all adults were full of shit. And and then the stuff I was being taught, especially in religious classes, um, I said, wait a minute. I was I had gone from not being able to think too well into thinking on a micro level, analytically, and nothing made sense to me. None of it. It was just like, um, I said, they might as well be fairy tales that are contained in these scriptures because they're so uncanny. It's like people turning into pillars of salt and tongues of fire over people's heads, and I said, some dude invented this. Just some bunch of dudes got together at some point in history and said, we got to create something that can keep people in line
Yeah.
and make them loyal. So they invented God. Every group of people all over the world had something that was a god. And some of them had uh, multi deities, like the Greeks and the Romans and the Norse and Christianity. I mean, I I just resented that I had to pretend that I understood this and that I was fine with it, and was not a popular stand to take. Um, and I had to keep it to myself. I had to keep my mouth shut, and I had to keep going to church on Sunday. And um, but meanwhile, when my mom finally left Detroit, we were still fairly religious. Um, but I resisted it, and eventually I was at the point where I just stopped going to church. I said, I can't do this. I'm not. And the thing was, is I was into it as a very small child. I knew the mass in Latin. They didn't even speak English in mass in the church. It was all in Latin, and
Wow.
um, and I knew it in Latin, and I I just, none of it ever made sense to me. I said that it's almost like they don't want anyone to really know what's going on. We're saying things by rote, a dead language. Nothing. The more I thought about it, but no one else saw it that way because they were indoctrinated and they were just like, well, God just loves everyone, and it's like, um, and I used to say, What if God is a big black woman? What would they think?" You know,
Exactly.
no, he's this white old man with a big beard, and it's like, are you kidding me? How old are you people? You know, I just thought too much. But I was hyper analytical, and I analyzed things on. I spectrum analyzed everything, but that was part of um, neurodivergence. So
Yeah.
had all these gifts that were good for nothing except to figure shit out. And one of the gifts was being able to create characters, create stuff from nothing, create voices. Um, that's totally an autism or neurodivergence uh, gift.
Yeah.
'Cause it wasn't taught to me. I always thought that talent was a form of mental illness, and because it's aberrant to the human condition. I mean, people just don't have talent. Only a few out of hundreds or dozens, have true talent, but it's aberrant to the human condition. You're not born into this world to come out singing and dancing and telling jokes. You have to be a certain type of person, and of course, now with AI and everybody has their own channel and their own shows, and uh, you don't have to be much of anything. I mean, I watch a lot of things, and I'm kind of disappointed at what I see as the lack of creativity everywhere. There are some people that are wildly creative, thank God, and it's encouraging to see. But this endless parade of channels, people, looking for money, and they take something that someone else did and they just watch it, and that's their video, that's their content.
Yeah.
Just sit there and just go, okay, if you like my videos, you know, and I said, what is this? This is so bogus. This is like, but I guess it's better than out robbing and stabbing people and killing people. I guess that's better. Go play with your show. Go play with a microphone.
And that, like, the creativity is gone though for a lot of people. And my aunt was saying this with AI and
Oh,
technology,
yeah.
kids don't have kids are being brainwashed. Like my nephews, they're on a tablet or my mom's phone or my sister's phone, just watching a video, and it's just like, why don't we go outside and play? I have neighbors upstairs. They're like 11 years old, and they're stomping up and down the stairs. It drives me fucking nuts. They're never outside. There's no one outside anymore playing.
No. Well, it's not healthy. I mean, it's so passive. I mean, if you're just sitting watching programming and a screen, how can you have time to think or be introspective or muse or deliberate, without constant input? Nobody can be alone with their thoughts. They've always got to have some shit going on in the background, or a video game or music playing, and I I was the exact opposite because I was deprived of media. Um, it was just the way things were. That back when I was growing up, there was only three television channels. They all went off at 11 o'clock at night, and they were in black and white. And I would watch something out of desperation. I'd be watching the coolest thing I ever saw in my entire life, but I knew I had this deathly fear that within 5 minutes it's going to be gone, and I'm never ever going to see it again. The coolest thing I just saw in my life. And so it made people like me want to become superlatives. Like, well, where did you where'd you learn to do those things? It's because I wanted to replicate stuff that turned me on, and I couldn't wait to show it to someone else. Hey, did you see that thing last night on TV? No, I didn't. Well, let me show you how it went. And I would do the characters, and I'd memorize reams of dialogue just on the spot. And my mind was like a tape recorder. And and then finally, when I was old enough, and I had one of the early little tape recorders that were available for people to buy, they were transistorized, and they had reel to reel tape. And this was in '62. And '63, I had little tape recorders, and that was my whole world, is just taping stuff. And I was enamored by sound. I was enamored by people's voices. I studied people like a little alien because I grew up, like I said, guessing at what normal was. I
Yeah.
I used to have to look at people and go, "Oh, that's how you laugh. Oh, that's how you cry." Like an alien trying to learn how to be human. And then I have friends that were like that. Um, the guy that I, the guy in radio that picked up the phone on me back 43 years ago or so, when I got to work there, we became really good friends, and he was the funniest guy I ever met. And he was a writer, but and we sort of knew what we were doing, but we weren't professionals. But because of his childhood, he was the same way. It's like he was loaded with ideas, and he would come in like a powerhouse, and I, on my end as a performer, would come in like a powerhouse. And I remember when we worked at the radio station, we'd be dreaming, daydreaming. We'd be in the back of the place, on our lunch break, high as rats, doing coke and stuff. And I remember looking up at the sky, and we're sitting there, and I said, Eddie, what must it be like? Imagine what it would be like to be the guy, the one that everybody points to as the standard you know, that by which all others would be judged. What must that be like? And he goes, "We'll never find out." So, so cut to 44 years later, uh, he became one of the most successful television producers and writers in Hollywood, and he works with Chuck Lorre. He was partners with Chuck Lorre on many many shows. His name is Eddie Gordetsky, and I called him up one day and I said, "Hey Eddie, one of us knows."
It is insane though, and I've said this a lot. People with broken families, they tend to have a good relationship and become best friends. Um, like
With
for
other
example,
creatives.
yeah, my wife and I, we both come from broken families. Like her parents had her own issues. My parents fought all the time, threatened divorce. They both walked out on each other multiple times, and but they would come back. But like
Yep,
as a kid, like you just like, is it my fault? Like,
of
you know what I
course.
mean?
Of course, you'd feel that way. That's what we were saying earlier. Every kid thinks that everything is his fault,
Yeah.
and it's the mixed messages. You grow up screwed up in a way, and you're desperately seeking normal or something that's not jarring or turbulent. You're just looking for some kind of smoothness to life. It shouldn't always be this tussle and this tug of war with this one and that one, and contest of wills with everybody that you meet. Does it ever end? For some people, it never ends.
I desperately seek like attention from my dad because he was always, I have an older sister, and my older
Yep.
sister was into sports, did every sport in the book. I did karate for 12 years, and I wrestled as well in high school for a little bit, but still, it was just
Yeah,
like she was priority number one, and I never really got you know, never
I
really got
see.
the love I wanted, or I
Well,
guess I felt I deserved.
you had you know, parents that weren't, you know, weren't equipped to handle a lot of situations, and I'm sure they did the best they could. But my
Yeah.
mom saved me literally. I mean, she, with all the craziness, and I wound up to be a drunk and a crazy when I played music in bands. Um, I was on this downward spiral. I was running around like a maniac growing up in Boston, and I would have died or I would have self-destructed had it not been for my mom, who somehow instilled in me an unerodable core. She was a good woman, a decent, good woman, and I loved her very much, and she loved me. I was the firstborn, and she she treasured me, even though I became a real pain in the ass. I mean, trouble. But uh, blood being thicker than trouble sometimes. But she was responsible for me not going out and just hanging myself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say my parents were the worst people. They weren't. I mean, they did try their best.
Yeah,
But I mean, the fact that your mom helped you, my parents helped me as well. Like, like if I went through living in fucking Pennsylvania, there's so many fucking potholes. I've popped at least 7 tires, and when I didn't have the money, they would give it to me. And my dad just randomly, he's just like, "Oh, I got some money. Here you go." He'll Venmo me money just randomly, which I appreciate. Don't get me wrong, but I'm glad that my parents helped, or
That's
they
really
still
good.
help. You
That's
know.
really good. I never had two nickels to rub together. I Money was very hard to come by. We were extremely poor because when we first moved to Boston, my mother had three kids and she couldn't take a job, and so we were really poor. We were on welfare,
Mm.
and she was embarrassed to death by that, and she couldn't wait to take some kind of training or go to school so she could become a dental assistant and get off the dole, as they say, get off the uh, the welfare rolls, and she did. She worked really hard, um, but I never had a sense of entitlement. I I When I became successful, I always kind of stayed grounded. I kept my feet on the ground. I never had a sense of entitlement. And like I said, celebrity didn't mean shit to me. Awards. Um, I was not money centric. I just, I had to be true to myself, and I had to be. Art is all about telling the truth. If you want to connect with people, even if you're doing silly characters, there has to be some sort of honesty or truth to it that connects directly with people because they pick up on what's genuine to them. They want to believe in something, and if a character speaks to them in some way, it has to do with the fact that the artist was beating his head against the wall trying to make it the most honest performance as it could be. And I've always tried to do that with every single thing I ever did.
And that's what you got to do in this day and age. Like, there's this guy at my job. He just texted me randomly. He was like, "Hey, what time do you start your shift, and what time do you end?" And I'm like thinking, why are you so curious about what I'm doing at this particular station, and why do you want to work at this station? He's like, "I want it for money." I'm like, "Well, I hate to break it to you, but if you're in radio just for money, you're not going to last." Because I knew going into radio, I made $10 an hour the first time I worked in radio. Now I got bumped up like a $5 raise, but still, it's
Yep.
just like you can't expect to make money and work at a station and like, oh yeah, I'm bougie. No, you can't do that. And I told him
No,
it
no,
doesn't
I
work
knew
like
I
that.
knew people that's the reason why they were attracted to it, so they could wear the radio station jacket at nightclubs and stick the call letters in someone's face. Oh, you work at the radio? Who, me? You know, um, and thinking you could make tons of money, and it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Very few people in radio ever made real money.
Yeah.
I
I'm,
mean, they were anomalies. The Stearns, the Rush Limbaughs, a few others. The big time old fashioned guys like um, cousin Brucey and all those guys, Wolfman Jack. They made big money.
do you remember John DeBella at all?
Oh, sure, Philly.
I worked with him.
Did you?
Yeah, I worked with him for at least 3 years, and then I he retired, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I worked with DeBella. Did you ever
He
meet Andre
interviewed me
Gardner?
once. Andre Gardner. How do I know him? I think he was like,
He pushed the button on Stern back in the '90s.
oh, yeah. I mean, he was like a non-entity to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. He probably went off to rise through the ranks or whatever. But when I was done with radio, I was seriously done. I mean, I I loved radio. I had a love-hate relationship with it because I knew what it could be and I knew what it was and I was watching what it was becoming. And I said, I have no home here anymore.
Mm. Yeah, no, I get that a lot. I mean,
And I was never a disc jockey. I was a talent, but I never played records. And all the disc jockeys at K Rock in New York, they all thought they were so damn important. And what are you doing? You're like a curator in a museum. You work 2 hours and 57 minutes a day. You showcase the works of others for a living, and you're like trying to be a big deal. And I used to laugh my balls off at that stuff. I used to say, they're such ninnies. They
yeah,
don't, none of them have any real, true, blaring talent. and they just found an angle. And hey, this is Johnny Ben and the Human Cannon. Say what's new. We got to come out, and that's what rock and roll is all about. Before we eat this stuff here, we got some friends. Mr. Roy Orbison, 1961 on CBS FM. You know, and I used to laugh at all the shit. I said, "Who talks like that?" Number one, I don't. I mean, I can do it because I was able to do just about anything in that field.
Yeah.
Um, but but you know, these guys try to act like a big deal, and um, I I said to myself, it's just such a flimsy premise to, you know, it's one thing to love it and be dedicated to it and all that. No one can fault you for that. How could they? And you begin to make some money eventually when your name gets successful and people like you. But there were some people that just wanted to go around town acting like a big deal, emceeing shows and thinking they were as important as the act they were introducing, and you know, a lot of egos.
Yeah. It is insane like how ego headed some people are in that business. I mean, I always saw it going into radio when I was a kid. It was just like morning shows, for example. They just walk in and just shoot the shit. I didn't think they had scripts and all these ideas. I just thought it was just let's just go in and shoot the shit type deal. And then when I got into radio, it's like, oh, these guys actually have scripts that they want to talk about. They have ideas that they want to
Yes,
broadcast.
yes. Well, there was some planning. That they've gotten away from that. Um, you know, it's usually like it takes three people to do one show, and
Yeah.
it was always like one person, maybe two. But now it takes like a gang to do a show, and they sit there with sunglasses on, and the microphones are all like in everybody's face. You know, look at me, and and I don't see any big amount of talent. It's just like you said, shooting the shit and
Yeah.
trying to make an issue out of everything and complaining. And
I mean,
you
if
know, I
I
mean,
have,
he's one of those guys that, and sports guys talk real loud as if they're on a baseball field. You know, they talk as if they're at a game. Go, I got to tell you something. You know, shut up. You know, I mean, you're looking at the Ron Guidry fastball. I mean, there's nobody that has anything like that nowadays. You know, do you know what I mean? You know, it's like, shut up.
it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, Al Kaline used to get a line drive to center field, boom, like that, right out of the gate, every day.
You're not wrong
And,
about
and but
that.
they shout. You know, what are you shouting? Fucking, you got a microphone.
And then you
It's an
get
affectation. It's an affectation, and they don't realize that it's comical, and they take it totally seriously. And everybody got their headphones on, and it's like, okay, we can't do this without microphones visible and headphones. Everybody's got to wear them, otherwise we won't look professional. You know, and you don't need either of those things if you're being recorded or filmed.
oh yeah, no, exactly.
I know,
And
and
then
that's what's refreshing about seeing you is you have no problem sitting there talking to me like a human being.
and that's the thing like whenever it comes to doing my show, a lot of people like I interviewed this guy that runs a haunted attraction, big haunted attraction, and my buddy's like, you should have came here with a big camera and microphones so that way it would seem more professional. I just did it off of Facebook Live, and the guy video blew up, and the guy was happy about it. He didn't care. He didn't care
No,
that we had
but
cameras and microphones.
no, no, of course not. Um, it's funny. I people don't know whether to shit or go blind when I say that when I do these shows, and I go, um, is that microphone plugged in? You know, I just bust balls. I
Yeah,
go, you know, you can hear me without those headphones on. I know you can. I don't have any. I hear you fine. You can
and
hear
that's
me, and I don't have a microphone. How does
yeah.
that grab you? And they don't know what the fuck to do because they think that that's the thing to do. And it's also, like I said, it's an affectation. They just want to have this. They think that looks cool. And the thing is cool was invented in the 1950s. Is if everybody's cool, then nothing's cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
If everybody is creating AI, then there's no creators. No one's creating shit. There's no nothing's cool about it if everybody can sit down with a few prompts and paint a Picasso. It's like, if you like my work, Patreon, go F me,
Do you believe that AI would take over all these shows that are animated or radio? Do you think that could happen?
Yes, it absolutely will. Uh, Sorry to say. I mean, it just will. I mean, because I know the corporate mind. I mean, it starts with it starts with labor, I mean, the robber barons wanted to exploit workers and get everything they could out of the hard work of others and pay them nothing, and that's been the template. That's a business model, and they'll do anything but pay somebody. That's like, uh, I it's like a greed thing with me. I mean, like I said, money was not the main reason I did anything. I just figured that if you do really good work and that you do stuff that makes you happy, stuff will sort of fall into place eventually, and you'll feel good about it in other ways than just satisfying your soul. But uh, they don't they don't want they if they could get rid of human beings, they would do it. I always thought that. It's
Yeah,
That's why the trend to, animated movies became such a big deal. Is they could make as much money with animated characters, and okay, oh well, if we have to deal with celebrities and their $20 million contracts, okay, we'll have them do voices. And that became the new movie business. Is all the stars were cartoon voices, and that put guys like me out of business because that was my vocation. That's what I did for a living. And then, to hear, I don't know, uh, I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name, but somebody that just, um, you know, just anybody that was famous, and because they were famous, they're going to do a voice in a cartoon. That that used to kill me because they're great at what they do, but they have no business doing character work. Most of them have no business doing it. And
right.
I know voice people that can piss circles around stage actors, television actors, movie actors. I seriously do. And yet they're proud of what they do because it is acting. They just chose not to do a particular thing. But that of course gets more attention and more rewards than what we do. So we were always thought of as the redheaded bastard stepchildren of the industry. Oh, they're just the voice people. No, we're actors. They always
Yeah,
had trouble putting that together. But yes, if they could replace all human beings, I mean, record companies can put out catalogs of albums with made up artists, people that don't even exist, are singing, and people that don't exist are writing songs and creating music, and it's passable. And they figure, what's the diff? Why should we pay anybody anything? We'll just buy software and fucking, go to town. And
yeah,
I know it's out there already. I mean, everything is turning into AI. Anybody that has a caricature of themselves online, they didn't pay an artist to do that. They just went and said, "Oh, I'm all set now. I get my own, you know, I'm I'm judge and jury of my own world because I can create art, I can create music, I can create logos, I can create graphics." And it's like it's all icing on the cake. It's like there's no cake if it's all frosting.
right.
Yeah.
My cousin, he scores movies for a living, and I'm wondering like how is that helping him with his business? Because he runs his own business now. He worked with
It,
Hans Zimmer. Um,
yeah, those days are they're closing in on that stuff fast. And
and
it's and
that's
it's
what
a
I think.
heartbreak. It's a heartbreak to think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be replaced. I've heard interviews of someone asking me questions and me talking that I never did.
Could you sue that? Now, could you like bring that up in
No,
court? No, you couldn't do that.
not really, unless they were using your name or something. But I mean, they can swipe voices, and um, you can't copyright a voice.
Right.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
mean, there's samples of my voice all over the planet, and saying things I never said. Everybody's playing the home game.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their hands on some stuff, and they can't wait to fuck with stuff that other people created because they don't know what to do. They don't know what a blank sheet of paper means. It's God's way of telling you how hard his job was. So they want to come in and redo and tool and futz with stuff that already exists. Um, and that, unfortunately, they think they're creative. They think they're creating art. And
That's not art.
no, it's not. But but all the labels and definitions are going to fade into time. They're going to fade into history, like everything else does. Nothing gets better. It's called entropy. It's a fact of the universe. It's physics, the gradual disintegration of everything right down to the molecule as time goes on. And it's why all the best stuff was done before we were born. You say to yourself, they were just starting out. How could they know everything? How could they have known to do everything right and create iconic, classic everything when they just started? Um, because people that wrote for movies didn't grow up watching movies and learning to write from watching movies. They had literary backgrounds, and then now it's like there's people writing movies that probably never cracked a book.
Right.
They just learned to write from watching TV or movies. And now there's people that never did anything that will create something with AI and it'll pass. I mean, every video you look at has AI narration. It's kind of a bleak thing, and it's in keeping with the way the world has become. Um, it's like there's a movement to replace our humanity, spiritually, physically. But I do have a theory. I have a feeling that live performances are going to become sacred. And what I mean by that, it's going to be people are going to never know whatever they're watching or listening to is real or not. They won't even know. And the only way you'll ever know for sure is if you walk in a door and there's somebody bearing their soul on a stage, whether it's singing or acting or performing comedy. That's the only way you'll know if something is real or not.
Yeah.
And it's going to become very, very valuable and important. People are going to get sick of never knowing whether something's real, and I mean that's my hope, at least, that people will go, what's it like to stand there and have someone create magic right in front of your face? That's the only way I'll know is if I go see it.
And that's the thing that scares me. I mean, I grew up, like I said, I was born in 95, so I was on the brink of when internet wasn't really a thing. And I grew up with internet. And the fact that AI is just taking over everything.
Yeah.
I even told my wife, I said, look, what you're doing right now, I guarantee in 10 years that job's going to be controlled by robots.
Oh yeah.
You'll be out of business. There's
Yeah.
so many jobs that robots are taking over right now.
Oh yeah. But it's the same. It's happened on many levels over the years. Like they feared that when I don't know, word processors came out and writers were scared. They're not even going to make typewriters anymore. And boy, were they ever right. I mean, so many things went the way of the Etzel or the Buffalo nickel, or they became archaic, and things that people knew and understood and depended on suddenly became worthless
Yeah.
over time and were replaced by some new form of something or other. And when computers came out and they had them in offices and stuff, there was an anxiety among workers. It's like that thing is doing what I do, and all I'm going to be wind up to become is a babysitter for the technology
Yeah.
and nothing more. And if I don't like it, out the door, and they'll get someone else. They love that. They love it. No
Yeah.
unions. They would love to get rid of unions. They don't want workers to make any money. They don't want them to have any rights. And I know I sound like the voice of doom, but I've been around for a really, really long time, and I've seen uh, how there's this pervasive attitude of disrespect for the workers, the hardworking people that that come there and try to do the best they can and try to enjoy it. And the people on top lose touch with what it feels like, to have to get on a bus instead of a brand new cabriolet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
get that completely.
Oh, they totally forget what that's like and what it's like to, to to go by a restaurant and say, you know what, I don't even have enough money for a bowl of soup because if I do that, then I won't be able to take the bus home. I mean, that's an extreme thing, but I maybe it's not. I mean, I don't want to lose touch with how tough it is.
I've always thought, like, I've had this thought for a couple of years, actually. I said, we need, like, when it comes to being, I was like, I want to be like the president because, like, I don't believe any other president has been through what I've been through. Like, I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's personally. You do, I do, we all do,
Yes.
because I want to be a voice for the little people. If I ever became president, I
Well,
would love that.
AI can't replace politics, and
Oh, well,
if you have a civic minded sense to you, um, you know where to start. You run for alderman or school council or local board of education, whatever. Um, it's baby steps with everything. I thought you were going to say, I want to be like the president. I said, you want to shit your pants every afternoon?
I don't think I could do no. I mean, the more and more I think about like all the duties that every president has to deal with, it would
Except this
drive
one.
me.
He doesn't know anything about anything.
Yeah,
He's not,
exactly.
he's not responsible for a damn thing. He doesn't sweat it. He doesn't go to bed at night going, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? Because he ain't wired like that.
No, and the fact of the matter is, like, I feel like he just is doing it for character. Like and I never
Well,
met a president.
he's a
Uh,
dark triad, malignant narcissist.
yeah,
It's terrifying that somebody like that. I mean, yes, they go very far. Those kind of people. Um,
but
show business is crawling with them. Malignant narcissists. The business world crawling with them. Um, but you can't compete with people like that because they don't have any soul. They don't have any feelings. No heart. No compassion. No empathy. And
yeah,
how can a regular person compete on that level? It's very difficult.
my whole thing is like, why is he on social media arguing with people? He's even arguing with his own supporters like Tucker Carlson, uh what's his name, Alex Jones, Megan, Kelly, all those people. Like, your supporters are telling you that you're not doing a good job and you're getting pissed off about it.
Well,
You
because
got to listen to them.
he has nowhere to go. He never listened to anybody in his life. It's obvious. He never did ever. He never had to learn anything. He just operated on the level of a malignant narcissist who was like, "I take, you give."
Yeah.
End of
And
sentence.
did you think that we were going to be going to war this past week with all this shit going on?
I had a feeling we'd wind up in a war, and I'll tell you why I have that feeling is psychologically. This guy, he looks like he's going to die. I mean, it could happen this afternoon, or it wouldn't shock me if tomorrow morning I woke up and the headlines, said, "Hey, fuckhead, drop dead." Um, we're not used to having a dictator. Other countries have been through this. They've lived, other countries are thousands of years older than us, and they've been through everything, including dictators who poked and prodded them and poked. And then one day they rise up and they take the guy and kill him and drag his dead ass through the streets of Rome, Mussolini, and spit on him and kick him. And they don't shit around over there. This is our first time around. And people don't know what to do. You know, I mean, the military doesn't know what to do.
No,
And
I
and
s-
And what kind of a situation is that where we've dismantled the government, um, systematically dismantled the guardrails and the safety nets and defunded everything and stole the money, just taking the money? Where does all the money go that they're cutting? Yeah, we slashed the budget, slash this, slash Musk comes in, slash this budget, that budget. We saved $1 billion here and there. Yeah, they're spending it like water, mostly him, on things that aren't even his. Like that, he doesn't own the White House. He doesn't have the carte blanche to tear down a piece of a historic building, which is, Americana. It stands for something. It's iconic. No, a malignant narcissist is going to say, I'm going to build it in my own image and likeness. And it's this wanting to play God. And that's all they know. That's all they understand. But my problem is I had a feeling we were going to get into some irreversible conflict worldwide and lead to a third world war. And and the thing is, that's fine with him because he's grifted more money than probably anyone in history,
yeah,
emptied out the country like a piggy bank, and enriched his sons and his friends, and it never ends. The grift just never ends. Every day is a new, uh new hijinks. But the third act in the play of a narcissist, a malignant dark triad narcissist, the third act is always, if I have to go, I'm taking everybody with me. That's my biggest fear.
yeah.
Yeah, if
I
I have to go and I have to leave all this money that I stole and I have everything I always wanted in my life, but it's never enough, of course. It's always like more demands, more threats, more um more trying to get something out of somebody else. Always, it never ends. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world. This is what drives these people to become pedophiles. It's like, I know what it's like to go down and pay for a yacht with cash. An 80-foot yacht, I can go down and pay for it cash. And I can have a car transported to that yacht, have it put on board, have it come down on a ramp in the Caribbean and drive around. I can do anything I want. I can get on a private jet and I can be anywhere in the world in like hours, like nothing. So when there's nowhere to go after that, they go, I wonder what it's like to fuck a 10-year-old. I mean,
yeah,
this is why this is going on. This is the insanity. It's like, what haven't I done?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
insane.
because it's an epidemic. There's no denying that. And that's why I said that. I didn't say that for shock value.
No, I know.
It's
Yeah,
like
I know. I got.
every other day you read about somebody else and you go, what is one out of every 8 people a pedophile now in this world?
It seems like it.
So so I didn't say that to be outrageous or shocking. I say it out of anger and frustration because I was victimized as a child. And it it kills me to think that the most successful people in the world, like, if it isn't one, it's somebody else. But this one guy, I forget what his name was. He's the guy that visited Epstein's island, and he's got his own yacht and he's got his family, and he calls up and he says, I got my family with me, my kids. And it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, what are you doing? What are you just going over there for lunch? You know, what why would you be going there?
exactly.
And it's sick. None of it makes sense. None of it adds up. And it goes back to when I was a kid when shit just did not add up. I knew that what I learned to do, I became hyper vigilant because of the childhood that I had, but I learned to hear what was not being said to me, and I learned how to see what wasn't being shown to me. I mean, that's how people become analysts and detectives and law enforcement, being able to see pattern recognition. And I was like that as a child.
Do you believe that he is sick? Because I see a lot of things that like Trump is like ready to go. A lot of people are saying he's probably going to resign or Vance is going to take over because he's not looking too hot. Do you believe that is happening?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. um you can't you can't carry on the way he does. I think he's just running on nut power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he doesn't sleep. He
Yeah, I don't
doesn't sleep.
understand that.
He doesn't sleep. He manages to somehow work and watch every show that's going to be mentioning him. He sees everything that anybody says. Yet he's president of the United States, the most important man in the world, the leader of the free world, and he's trying to make deals and he's carrying on, and all he's doing is like building monuments and shrines to himself.
The thing that him and most people don't realize, if you don't like something but you're watching the show to either criticize it, you're still giving them clout. I mean, I've had multiple instances where that. So he's basically giving these guys clout, even though
Yeah.
he claims he doesn't listen. So
Oh,
he's
but that's the joke. That's the ultimate irony is that his pettiness knows no boundaries
yeah.
and his hypocrisy knows no boundaries.
And I love these like the far right MAGA people because I work with a few at my job. I work for a classic rock station, country station, but I also work for a talk station, and the talk station is brokerage, so we have politics, sports, whatever. Anyways, these far right MAGA people, they're God this and God that, and I'm just like, have you ever been to church?
No,
No. Then why are
no,
you preaching about God? Like I made a joke about on Easter. I said something on TikTok. It was like you're all saying he has risen, but how many of y'all have actually went to church? And a lot
no,
of people, yeah, a lot of people didn't. They're like, I go to church, I do this, I do that. I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit. Just be honest.
no. People like that, they have nothing to hide behind, so they wrap themselves in the flag and the Bible.
Yeah,
They are of no substance that could relate without having to talk about God and saying, I have faith in God or God talks to me. God told me to do this and that. No, he didn't. That's when you know you're sick. It's like
yeah.
it's one thing to talk to God, but when God is talking to you, you're fucked up.
There's a girl on TikTok. She's like, she's Christian, and she's saying, God is this, God is that. And I asked her a question. I said, "Well, if you're talking to God, you're technically talking because I believe in ghosts. I'm a big like believer in the paranormal." I was like, "Then he's a ghost essentially." She was like, "No, ghosts aren't real, but God's real." And da, 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 da. And she's doing everything to the T. Like she even said like premarital sex is a sin. I'm like premarital like if you're going to have sex with a random guy who has like wouldn't you want to do it with multiple people? No, that's a sin having like flaunting your body around. I'm like, what?
No, nothing they say makes sense, and I'm just
No.
shocked that people don't relentlessly bust on them because a lot of people are just cement heads that just listen when someone's saying something and they either believe it or they're even weirder than that. They just think that whatever pops into their fucking head is the truth.
Yeah.
And that is a very, very sad and dangerous situation. But I mean, you believe in ghosts and just no, no, God's not. Well, what's the Holy Ghost? And
Exactly.
where did he come from? Was he Casper the Friendly Ghost, or is he a religious? What is he? What is he? Well, that's just that's symbolic of what? You know, you can't have a conversation with a crazy person,
You
or
should
or a fanatic, or a zealot.
you should hear my wife's take because she went to Catholic school for 8 years and she told me she fucking hated it. It was the worst for her.
Yeah.
She even told me she stopped believing in all that because what she's saying, all the stuff going on in the world, you figure there's a school shooting. Why, if there's a God, why isn't he saving these poor kids from getting shot up and killed? Or why isn't he saving people that are getting shot on like 69th Street or in Philadelphia somewhere or wherever?
Well, because the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're supposed to have faith of something that cannot be proven, no matter how hard people try.
Yeah.
And then if something serendipitously happens that is the greatest thing in the world and appears to save the world from a terrible thing, they immediately go, um, well, that was divine intervention. That was God's plan. It was a miracle, because I believe in miracles. Those are divine. And yet the same people will say, when a tornado hits a state and levels block after block and kills people and everything, they'll say it's because of gays. You mean the same God that loves everybody, and he's all forgiving and all knowing and all this and that and benevolent, and you mean he's that petty that he'll destroy half of a state because there's guys that love each other and have sex with each other? You mean that the same God is capable of that? None of it ever made sense to me.
I have gay people in my family, and I told that to somebody who was a far right extremist, and they said, "Well, they're sinners." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "And you don't have any gay people?" And they're like, "Oh, we do. We just disown them. Why? They're part of your family, right? Don't you love your family?" Yeah, but we don't love them because they're gay or they're trans or this, that, and the third. I made a
They
joke.
don't.
I was going to say I made another joke because the new Malcolm in the Middle reboot, there's a non-binary character, and I know a lot of people are pissed off about that. I was going to say, I wonder how many MAGA friends are going to delete me off of Facebook because I'm watching the new Malcolm in the Middle with the non-binary character.
But look at the ridiculousness of it. This is what those people are all busy with.
Yeah,
You know, it why why does it bother you? Do you have that much of a control problem that it's like a rock in your fucking shoe because a certain character on TV is this or that, and that bothers you? Examine yourself. Take a good look in the mirror. How controlling are you? How how are you somebody that can't keep his nose out of other people's business, and they got to listen to your point of view, and if they don't see it that way, you're a sinner? By whose definition? Yours?
yeah. By their
Explain,
definition,
explain it, explain it.
I would love just to interview a far right extremist just to see.
No, you
What,
wouldn't, because there's no way out. It's
there's no
like,
way out.
no, it's quicksand. No, you can't argue with people that are irrational. I
No,
mean,
you're
even
right.
even even Ben Shapiro gets his fucking eyebrows beat off every now and then.
Did you there's a comedian Theo Vaughn who was on Rogan and he was bitching about how like rich people don't send their kids out the off the war, and Rogan
Yes.
thought it was crazy. But I'm just like,
Why does Rogan play dumb like that? He certainly isn't. He
no.
plays dumb like
And
he doesn't know that that's the way it goes.
yeah,
No, no, I know a lot of people that, I know a lot of rich people that, no, you don't.
it's just insane that everyone just like it's like they're afraid to go against what people are what people want. Like for example, Trump, everyone's afraid to go against them.
Well, now they're coming around, but I mean that playing dumb act is wearing thin as far as I'm concerned. It's like, oh, he's just figuring out now that Trump is crazy. He's just figuring it out now that the guy's no good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I always gave him the benefit of the doubt, and.
do love your impressions, by the way. They're really good.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing.
It's great. What time is it? It's wow. We went on for a long
It's
time.
later than you think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, is there anything you want to promote before we get out of here?
Um, yes. There's a new going from the ridiculous to the sublime. Um, there's a new season of Futurama that'll be coming out. Still being shown on Disney Plus and Hulu. Um, it's just as enjoyable as it ever was. I mean, I'm so happy to be doing it, and I love the show. I've always loved it. My favorite thing I've ever done. Um, and I have this book coming out, Voice Versa, and it's going to be out. It's on Abrams Books, published by Abrams, and it's going to be out July 14th. And there's pre-orders going on Amazon and Barnes and Noble already.
All right, sounds
Yeah,
good.
lucky me. I mean,
Yeah, no, you made a good career out of what you're doing right now, and
I think people will really enjoy it. I mean, even if you weren't a person that went through what I went through, but I happen to know that there's way more people than than most people are aware of that went through horrible stuff and worse than me.
yeah,
And I can imagine somebody sitting there reading it, and it's like, I've read books where I was really saying, this guy is telling my story. This guy, what happened to him? He's telling my story. This is what's going on in my life.
yeah,
Yeah, and if that's the way that it's perceived, I couldn't be happier. I mean, that's the main reason for doing it, is to inspire other people to know that they're not alone. Number one, um, they're not alone, because whatever they're going through, other people have gone through and are going through. And if you're depressed or you were born with depression, there was no way you could deal with it years ago. And now we live in 2026. It's like nobody has to live like that in this day and age. There's
yeah,
help. There's help. You can ask for help. But, I mean, to this day, I'm on medications that make me feel like I'm on a level playing field with the rest of the human race. And I wouldn't be able to go without it. I mean, I wish I could, but it doesn't, it edifies my life. It doesn't turn me into something I'm not. It just
yeah,
replaces chemicals that you weren't born with. What
yeah,
are we talking about? Like 86 cents worth of chemicals that you weren't born with? Like uh, serotonin and dopamine and all these other things that you're supposed to have to give you a sense of well-being. Well, there's a lot of people that were born with devoid of those things. And
yeah,
now there's beta blockers and there's this, that, and the other thing, and replacement, uh, to make up for the lack of uh, chemicals that keep you from having screwed up thoughts. And it's real.
yeah. It is.
Yeah,
But no, definitely. When your book comes out, I would love to have you back on.
sure, absolutely. I enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise. All right,
Yeah.
let's take a quick little break, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
Okay.